Today, we're going to discuss the death of Nex Benedict, a 16-year-old non-binary student at Owasso High School in Owasso, Oklahoma, who died on February 8, 2024, one day after being assaulted by several peers in a school bathroom. Nex loved nature, drawing, reading, and playing Ark and Minecraft. Nex had a cat, Zeus, and was a fan of The Walking Dead. Nex's mother is a registered member of the Choctaw Nation, whose leadership have offered their support following Nex's death. Now, before we discuss the details of Nex's death and the ensuing events, I'd like to provide some context. The Tulsa suburb of Owasso is a relatively small city with a population just shy of 40,000. Owasso is part of Tulsa County, where the infamous Tulsa Race Massacre, one of the worst incidents of racist violence in American history, took place in 1921, and the county has voted Republican in every presidential election since 1940. 2 years ago, Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt signed a bill into law mandating that students at public schools across the state use the bathrooms corresponding with the sex listed on their birth certificate. Last month, Oklahoma State Superintendent Ryan Walters, who has described trans people as, quote, an assault on the earth, appointed anti-LGBT activist Haya Raychik to a state library advisory board. Haya's credentials? 2 years ago, she accused a queer Owasso middle school teacher of being a groomer, getting him fired despite a complete lack of evidence. According to Nex's grandmother, they and other trans kids had deemed this teacher safe and were very upset about his firing. On Wednesday, February 7th, Nex decided that they were done being harassed at school for their gender expression and poured water on one of their bullies. A group of 3 girls retaliated with disproportionate force, throwing Nex to the ground and, according to a friend's parent, repeatedly bashing their head against the floor. If it weren't for state law requiring Nex to use the girls' bathroom, the assault, which took place in a school restroom, may never have happened. Owasso High School principal Tiffany Cooper opted not to call 911 or file a police report following the incident, instead suspending Nex for 2 weeks and sending them home. Nex's grandmother took them to a nearby hospital for treatment and called the Owasso Police Department, who, upon arriving, informed Nex that both parties in the fight would be charged with assault, with Nex treated as the primary aggressor. Nex was discharged the same day and reportedly went to sleep with a sore head. The next day, they collapsed and stopped breathing by the time EMTs arrived. Nex was declared dead at the hospital that evening. Nex's family held a funeral on February 15th. Governor Stitt and State Superintendent Walters did not attend. In the weeks since Nex's death, the Owasso Police Department has gone out of their way to obscure the facts of the case, stating that despite the absence of an autopsy report and the existence of an ongoing investigation, they determined Nex, quote, did not die as a result of trauma. Now, I'm not sure whether one of those girls who beat Nex to death was the daughter of a cop or if this is just garden variety small town corruption and bigotry, but this is a disgusting abdication of responsibility. Owasso Police Chief Dan Yancey clearly isn't fit to wear a badge and carry a gun, let alone run the department. As of February 24th, the facts available to the public are that Nex was beaten by 3 girls at school. Their head was bashed into the ground and they went to the hospital complaining of head injuries, then died the next morning. Now, I'm not going to make definitive statements about how Nex died. Doing so before an autopsy report is released and more details are public would be premature. That's how I know I can't trust the Owasso Police Department, whose chief seems more committed to covering for the girls who assaulted Nex than doing his job. I strongly encourage anyone watching this video who wants to turn your heartbreak and anger about Nex's death into some sort of productive action to call the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Oklahoma at 918-382-2700 and urge them to launch an independent investigation. Again, that's 918-382-2700. You can also contact the Department of Justice online at justice.gov/contact-us. Again, that's justice.gov/contact-us, and I will include more details in the description. One thing I will make definitive statements about today is Haya Raychik, the former Brooklyn real estate agent behind the right-wing Twitter account Libs of TikTok. Haya has made a career out of mocking LGBTQ people, building an audience of hateful right-wing followers, boosting bigoted petitions like State Superintendent Ryan Walters and inspiring countless bomb threats, Haya is so proud of the violence she inspires that the profile picture of her personal Twitter account is a photo of her holding a copy of USA Today that reads, quote, "When libs of TikTok posts, threats increasingly follow, and grinning ear to ear." Oxford defines terrorism as the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aims. Federal law defines domestic terrorism as violent criminal acts committed by individuals and or groups to further ideological goals. I believe that Haya's repeated incitement of violence against specific LGBTQ people makes her a domestic terrorist. Most major online platforms seem to agree, as they have all banned her, with one exception, of course. Haya now uses her almost 3 million Twitter followers as a sort of digital shield against accountability, and is currently melting down over accusations that she bears some responsibility for Nex's death. She has promised to sue everyone who alleges she is in any way responsible for violence against queer people. The thing is, Haya clearly doesn't understand how the First Amendment works. I can call her a domestic terrorist and a horrible, empty shell of a person who's run by small, angry mice rather than organs like the rest of us, because I believe that to be true and the law protects me. She has further harmed her own hypothetical cases by publicly admitting she knows she'd lose them, but would use threats of lawsuits as a silencing mechanism. Sound familiar? Even worse for terrorist Haya, she is technically a public official sitting on the Oklahoma Library Advisory Board, meaning that she will have to prove that anyone who said something untrue about her did so with actual malice. Now, I try not to bother advocating for things that I know will never happen, so I'm not going to ask you to tell Elon Musk to ban her from Twitter, but maybe go give her a hard time. Let her know that you know she has the blood of trans kids on her hands. I would say give her a taste of her own medicine, but I wouldn't want to stoop to her level.